All right, so here's what we cut off. Here's what you watched us do right here. And we did another video here about a month ago where we put a panel on, and I kind of did it to the shape of what's going on here. Didn't work out. I had too much heat soak in this area here of the metal, and it warped it really bad. So starting over, that was a cheap panel anyways. We got another one, and we're going to do a flange weld, and that's what you're looking at here. And basically this tool that you have here, see the inside of it? That gives it that. And I can do it here if you're careful, you don't screw it up. You put it in there, and you see it's a little uneven right there. I might be able to clean that up. And then outside of some primer damage, it leaves this little lip that drops down, and it leaves it drop back enough to where your panel here, your new panel, will fit right on top of it, and it allows it to lay flush with this. So this will just be smooth, and then you'll take whatever means you need to fill that in, whether it be like a Duraglass, or I don't really want to say Bondo, it's the gap might be too wide there, but you can do a Duraglass or a good sealer of some sort. And then you drill your holes in here, drill them out or pop them out. This actually has a hole popper, but it doesn't work that good. It's right down in here, and if you watch, that's where you get your hole punch. And I really like the flanger part especially. If you watched our video with our friend Dale from over in Louisville, he's the one that loaned that to us, so thanks Dale for loaning that. It really helps out with a different approach on here. He builds a lot of his race cars with that sort of thing, and so he was gracious enough to let us borrow that. This panel, we need to trim up a few things on it. A lot of that will be this here, down in here, and we'll have to trim the actual new panel to fit this, which is just where it recovers around this corner here. And then we're going to clean some of this up, rebuild our lip section in here where the two lips fit together from here to here, and then we have a little blister area there we're going to fix. But once we get this cleaned up, the green is our internal frame coating that we've been using, really good stuff, so we'll just touch it up. And I might use panel bond up in here. That'll keep all the water out of the seams and bond it in there as good as a weld. So we're going to consider doing that. I was thinking about using it up here, but I've decided against it. I think might as well weld it, and then we'll just take our time and really seal the seam on both sides to avoid any corrosion. Now, you might get it to some degree, but we're going to do the best we can. One thing you want to remember, if you got any glass for your truck or in the windows in your garage or anything, got any of that around where you're going to throw some sparks or do any welding, make sure you cover it up, because it'll attract to that glass and tear it up. So that's for our that's the side cargo door that we don't want to mess that glass up. So then we're free to throw sparks everywhere. All right, so we marked off our perimeters, everything we want here, but that doesn't mean we're done. This just gives us a baseline to where the panel, the limit of the panel, that's the highest it'll go, and this is the furthest we want it to go that way. Okay, so for the flanger, there's a 1/2 inch of flange that it gives you. So I'll just take a simple ruler and go from the bottom of this line down 1/2 of an inch. And I'll make these marks, I don't know, about every 6 inches or so. And then when I do that, I'll run a piece of tape according to this line, and then I'll pull this one off. And then that'll give me my area that I actually cut. So I will cut that area and not this one here. Now right here, I'm going to do things a little differently. Where this hard bend is in the body, it'll be hard to get that flanger to come up to it and work around it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave a 1/2 inch to where on the new panel I will cut that corner off and butt weld that onto here, okay? So it'll come up through here, and you got to be real crafty right where the butt goes from the flange so that it works into it seamlessly without having a big knot on it. So we'll try to get that to work. It might be a little tricky and we might regret it, but hey, you live once, right? This just reminds us of where we need to cut so that we don't start cutting on this side of the tape line just out of some, error. So we'll try to point out this is the side you want to cut on. So here's what we got fresh out of the cut, and I'm gonna say this will probably have a hole in it here. Yep. When you get that big piled up thick stuff, so we got that. It looks about the same as the other side did. Maybe not as bad through here. The other side was really bad here, but not as bad on the sides. So we'll get this lip off of here, get the rest of this off, and then we'll proceed to trim some of the other bits off here as we get down the line. And much like the other side, we got to, where the X is, we have to replace these lips and then this little blistered spot right here. So, man, we're getting so close. So close. Okay, so it's getting about 12:30. I'm gonna retire for the night. We've got some neighbors that have probably went to bed for the night, so I don't want to make any more noise. And I'm at the point where I need to make some noise, so we'll go ahead and stop here. But I started flanging down through here till it hit that curve, and I started here after the curve. See that? Probably what I'll do, I'll take the grinder and just cut it, and it'll relieve it. That way have a nice crisp break to where, because it doesn't really transition here, but it transitions there. And when you see the panel going, if you're not sure what I'm talking about, you'll probably see then. The outside panel won't have any modifications other than holes to weld it, but it won't be manipulated level wise. So it'll fit right in this spot. It'll butt weld here and here until you get to these little marks. Okay. So I'll have to pull this out a little bit since I use that glue. It's on the panel. I have to kind of scrape it off. So I'm going to jump over that for now, and I'll get it tomorrow. This panel flanger works really nice, and we still got enough air in it. You kind of bottom it out on there. See that? And then you just kind of overlap it a little bit each one. Try to get a nice consistent ridge line down through there. Might be hitting some stuff under. Yeah, there's a little bit of glue. They used to have some insulated panels up in there. Let's see if we can kind of break it loose. But if not, we'll just clean it up tomorrow. There we go. Let's go as far as we can, and that's about it right there. So there's our little ridge. And the panel, we'll clean all this paint off, this old green stuff, and get it nice and clean down through there. And then our panel should fit up against that. Now I think what I'll do, I'll take the panel and I'll lay it up here, and I'll show you how you get this mark here that is not, see, that panel probably goes to, I think, about here. We don't need to use all that there. So I'll trim it off to here, and I'll show you how I mark it. And we have a template made for this piece here. We'll replace that with some 16 gauge. Get the rest of this wheel lip off of here. And then on both sides of the van, we will probably go ahead and just take this piece out completely. And it's just where it flanges right here. That piece right there. Pretty sure that's what I'll do. I could change my mind by the next scene that you will see here. So with that said, I'm going to go to bed for the night, and we will be back when it's daylight outside. Alright, so it's a lovely Saturday morning. Usually this is when I get started on the weekend part of the project, but I had a head start last night. And it was one of them cool deals where you didn't expect it to happen, but you just started fooling around with it, and next thing you know, you've got both quarter panels cut out. And this is the most light the inside of this van has probably ever had. So I've been thinking about it before I went to sleep last night, which was already kind of late. But I definitely will make this first. This section here. I got a template. And I'm thinking there is a couple pinholes in here. And also, it's pretty crusty under here. Plus, this actually has the lip on it that we need to replace, as well as the one on this side. So I think what I'll do, it might be kind of thin. I went and got some more 16 gauge. And judging by the other piece I had, here's the new piece. It looks like we'll have really nice width here to take care of this. Maybe even enough to make the lip. I don't know. We'll see. Looks like it needs to go that way a little bit. Put it all the way in there. Okay, so it goes right to the edge. It's like made for this almost, but I'll probably have to weld a lip on the edge of it that kicks downward. But I was expecting to do that anyways. And then we'll make a lip that rolls down here and it'll be nice, clean, and fresh. Okay. I am thinking of panel bonding this whole bottom section on each side. So this seam under here, and that would be it on this side, and then the same thing over there, the wheel lip, and then up against this thing. That way you don't have to drill holes and put welds in there and then have to smooth them out and all that sort of thing, which is what they did originally. So let's avoid that. And I went and got some extra clamps today. Since I am not much of a clamp guy, I am a clamp guy now. So, got most of our arch made, and most of it was just based off that template, and using the vise to gradually bend it, going through the curve, making a relief cut here so that it would continue through without, it turns the whole thing into a really ugly piece of metal. So once you get your initial bend for the lip, then you could start kind of reflattening it back out. So what I'm going to do, I went ahead and bashed a lot of this lip back up, get it out of the way. And we just got to determine where we want to cut this piece off. So what I'll do, I'll clamp this up here, and since it's so, you see that it doesn't fit right now very good. We'll take some clamps and try to establish that. I think we'll make do with vice grip. If we got a lip here, we can just pull it up under. So we're tied up against the lip that exists on it. The old one deteriorates probably about here, and that's where we start cutting away anyway. Now this piece, I gave it a little bit of extra to hang down right here. So that's about where we want it. It'll move on you if you're not careful. So I'm going to pop that in and form it a little bit. But I think I'll just go ahead and make a careful mark on it, and then we'll cut it off. We might end up replacing a bit more of this than I originally thought than just the lip. I might go up a few inches further, but I'm going to go ahead and mark this anyways and see if, because that's an original piece, and if you get your new piece to conform to it, and then you can establish that, then you'll be in a good spot for when you go build your new piece. It's staying around the original dimensions as much as possible. We got some assorted clamps on here, and when I bought my clamps this morning, I just bought a variety. Try not to get all the same thing, because that same thing may not work for every project. So I got one of these, a small one of these. I use the vice grips which I've had in this vice grip style, which has the long reach on it. So if you're just getting a few for initial, try to get a little variety. And that way you might be able to make them all work, and you might be able to make some of them work, and it'll help you get a little further if you're doing various projects. So I've got it pretty much planted over here. I have one tack, and it's still, they're not quite lining up, but that's okay. You just manipulate each section and get it flush, and then tack it, and then move to the next one, and just keep bouncing around. Like this is really off down here. I mean, it's hanging out half of an inch, but we're good down through here, so we'll just establish that, and then we'll worry about that, and maybe put a little bend in it as we go. My wire's binding up. I've been watching the videos that happen. Yep. Pretty good welder, but occasionally it'll do that. Seems like at the most inopportune time. Like now. Struggling. tack in, I like to hold it where you have been holding it for a second, and I'll give it time to solidify. Sometimes you let it go, it'll snap. So we're pretty flat with it now, and you know how bad that piece really looked. I mean, it didn't look good. But if you get your shape right, and you can use your clamps, use a little bit of heat, use your pliers, make relief cuts. You can get things to fall in line. And sometimes you might get a warpage, but at that point you can kind of move the whole thing if you have to. It'll be easier because the rest of the vehicle's holding it in place for you. So this part over here we'll have to work on next. See, it goes in like this, whereas the wheel kind of drops the other way. So the thing to do is just keep following closer and closer to where it's furthest away. Like we'll just come down through here and let it bend in like that, and then we'll bend it out when we get a weld on it. And it's a little flat right here where it's holding it there, because there's a little bit of a slope, and it disappears when it gets to right where this mounts up. So when you clamp it down, it kind of brings it all into shape. It's kind of wild how that happens. Alright, so there's a pretty good stitch going on here. It still needs to be finished out, but it's in there very snug, we'll say. And like I said, we have a tack here just to give its definition, and then we left a lot of this out. We'll finish this up later and smooth it down. I'm going to go ahead and grab a template of this piece. Pretty simple. There's just a few lips on it. I might have to weld one of them on, like this one here, possibly. And we have one that kicks down here and eliminates about halfway, but then still has a little bit of a bend. That overlaps this piece. So see, they did kind of the flange lap there like we were doing up here. So we'll bust these spot welds out. Alright, so we've made our template. And that template, once you squeeze it around there and get it into place, here's your lip that goes down that we're talking about making. And this lip is the one that goes downward. And you have a partial lip that goes downward. This little notch here is what you're looking at right here. It's 3/8 of an inch wide. I think it's about 5/8 inch deep. And here's our lip. It'll come down here and we'll replace all this rusty adhesion area for the quarter panel. So a lot of pretty basic measurements. It's kind of windy out there. So our panel, with the exception of having to weld a lip on, fits near perfect. See this here? You walk it over here, it actually eliminates right where it would bend down. So this piece will make a lip, just a little strip, and then we'll weld it on at the proper angle. But the rest of it, it's just only a handful of cuts. We don't have to cut an entire piece out because most of the dimensions are already established. So we'll get this cut out, we'll bend it up, we'll make our piece, and we'll be ready to tear the other one out and see what we got. I've been working on this driver's side for a few hours now. Yes, a few hours. And this flange that came down, I decided to go ahead and cut it off because we'll just use the one on the quarter panel. And it has a wraparound effect where it comes around here, and that makes it really hard to peel this lip off. And I'll show you another one that was giving me trouble. and that was right here, which was what was left of the old panel here. It was right in here. I couldn't get a grinder in there. I finally had to take a chisel to it, busted it out. Now, the flange back here is pretty clean. I just need to go over it with the sanding disc, and it's a little bumpy. So we're gonna clean that up. But in the meantime, if you put this in there, you'll see it's holding it out a little bit. It needs to be flattened really good. But we got a good fit over here, and if you push it down, that's where it needs to be. But it needs to be flattened, like I said, this side. To see the little bump outs, that's where the spot welds were. So we need to flatten those out, or if it's excess material, we'll grind it down and then clean that lip up. So it should set this back another 1/8 of an inch probably, and then we'll be good there. And I'm about ready to go ahead and cut here and just make a nice straight cut across there, and we'll replace that piece. Alright, so this piece is roughly tacked in, not completely, but we did tack it down here in the area where it's black, or completely welded that little 1-inch space. Same thing down there, because this is soon to be hidden by the panel that goes in place here. Oh yeah, I did cut that little section out right there. It had a big chunk of swelled up sheet metal in it, so I relieved it of that. And I might not jump on that right away. I might go ahead and try to finish all of this, because that needs to be in there before we put the panel on and get all this smoothed out. So here's our panel. Should go notch. We'll go around the piece here. Should be ready to go. Oh, this is the flange that we welded on because the sheet wasn't wide enough. But it's pretty good if it gets there. Some of our assorted variety of clamps. So we just take our vice grips and we'll squeeze the floor sections out from the middle to this piece. You ever wonder if the Don Henley song Boys of Summer refers to all the bugs that come out? Make sure we're flush. And then I think I'll try this one. Put it in the center here. I'll move it over. Yeah. I moved it back towards that corner. There's a little bit of a gap, so I want to try to squeeze that together as tightly as I can. Which is right there. Which brought this all together nicely. Looks good down through here. I have enough of a lip hanging down in the wheel well, 1/4 of an inch, and it looks very even down through there, so that's good. I'll go ahead and stick that one there. Make sure that floor stays tight. And then I'll just take the big long one, since it's the only one we got left. It'll let me, so I will put it here. Okay. The only area it's flopping is where it kind of laps back in that corner. I won't need a clamp there, I don't believe, but well, we might try one. We might get this other stuff short up and then see what we got. So this floor section right here goes underneath here. And so that's laying on top of it, and that's just squeezing it down. We want a nice flush fit here, and we want it a flush fit down through here, and we couldn't achieve it without the clamps. So the first one, we have it squeezed up tight. Same thing there. That's the main one that really brought everything together, and then the vice grips back here, that is holding those two together. Alright, our panel is in. It is fully welded, seeing as it's all plug welds, and we plug welded all the holes. That's good. Now this, we will clean this up and then see if we need to go through and touch up any little cavities that appear. Same thing here and here where we had to do a relief cut. What we have here is the rust that was equivalent to that side. We just cut the section out, and part of it where rolls down like this. And that piece is right here. So it's set in here just like that, okay? This one was the worst of the sides. Because if you look, this is the lip, or the double lip. So both of these at one time was right next to each other. But if you notice, there is some kind of buildup in here. I'm gonna tighten this down. So you see it's got a nasty buildup of, it's very light in color, but it might just be some gravel that is accumulated on this steel, and the steel has absolutely swollen up and it's distorted it. So we'll just build 2 new lips. And this piece right here will be the one that'll go in the wheel well. And then we'll probably just take this strip right below it, put a little bend in it, and it'll be the kick down part of that. We'll squeeze them together and do some spot welding once we get them fitted. So far this one will just fit in there and at that right angle. Alright, so based on the work, the amount of work that we're doing on this van, I'm going to cut this video off right here, make it a part 1. When we get into part 2, we'll get these things on, get the rest of this cleaned up, and hopefully you can see a nice quality finished project. So, in the meantime, to make sure you see part 2, subscribe, hit the little bell so you get the notification, and we'll be seeing you. Thanks for coming to the Hoosier Garage.